Welcome to All-Time Epic Stories. Today, we present The Stoic Alchemist, transforming life's chaos into inner gold. In the heart of ancient Athens, there lived a man named Metrodorus, a philosopher who discovered the secret that would change everything. While others sought gold in the earth, Metrodorus sought something far more valuable, the alchemy of the mind. He understood that true transformation begins not with changing the world, but with changing how we perceive it. The Stoics called this mental discipline the art of turning obstacles into opportunities. Metrodorus watched as a merchant lost his entire fortune in a single day when his ship sank in a storm. The merchant stood on the shore, watching everything he owned disappear beneath the waves. Most would have been destroyed by such loss, but Metrodorus approached him with a different perspective. He asked the merchant a simple question: what remains when everything external is stripped away? The merchant looked confused, still fixated on his material loss and the catastrophe before him. Metrodorus explained that possessions are borrowed from fate, but character is the only true wealth we forge ourselves. This was the first principle of Stoic alchemy, understanding what lies within our control and what does not. External events are like weather patterns, they come and go regardless of our wishes. But our response to these events, our judgments and interpretations, these remain eternally within our power. The merchant began to understand that his ships were never truly his, they were merely on loan from the universe. What he could keep forever was the courage he developed, the wisdom he gained, and the character he forged. This realization marked the beginning of his transformation from victim to alchemist of his own experience. Metrodorus taught that every adversity contains within it the seed of equivalent or greater benefit. The key is learning to extract that seed and plant it in the fertile soil of your consciousness. He introduced the merchant to the practice of negative visualization, imagining loss before it occurs. This ancient technique wasn't pessimism, it was preparation, a way to rob future adversity of its power to shock. By contemplating the impermanence of all things, we learn to cherish them fully while holding them lightly. The merchant practiced this daily, visualizing various scenarios where he might face further loss or hardship. Each visualization became a rehearsal for resilience, strengthening his mental fortitude like exercise strengthens muscle. Meanwhile, in another part of the city, a young woman named Talia faced her own crucible of transformation. She had been betrayed by those she trusted most, her reputation shattered by false accusations. The pain cut deeper than any physical wound, threatening to consume her with bitterness and despair. Metrodorus found her contemplating revenge, her heart heavy with the poison of resentment. He shared with her the second principle of Stoic alchemy, the transmutation of negative emotions into wisdom. Anger and resentment, he explained, are forms of self-inflicted suffering that give others continued power over us. When we hold on to bitterness, we drink poison and expect the other person to die. Talia protested that her anger was justified, that she deserved to feel outraged at the injustice done to her. Metrodorus agreed that the events were unjust, but asked whether her anger changed the past or improved her future. He introduced her to the practice of cognitive distancing, observing thoughts without becoming them. Our thoughts are like weather passing through the sky of consciousness, we need not become the storm. Talia learned to notice her anger arising, to study it with curiosity rather than becoming consumed by it. She would silently note, "There is anger," rather than saying, "I am angry," creating space between self and emotion. This simple shift in language created a profound shift in her relationship with her own experience. Over weeks of practice, she discovered that her betrayers had actually given her an unexpected gift. They had stripped away her false sense of security, forcing her to develop genuine inner strength. Without the crisis, she would have remained dependent on external validation and the opinions of others. Now she was being forced to find validation from within, to become her own source of worth. This was the essence of Stoic alchemy, using adversity as the heat that refines character into its purest form. Metrodorus taught both his students the third principle, the discipline of perception. Every event is neutral until we assign it meaning through the lens of our interpretation. A rainstorm ruins a farmer's harvest but saves a drought-stricken land. The event is the same, only perspective differs. He challenged them to practice deliberately reframing obstacles as opportunities for growth. When faced with difficulty, ask not why is this happening to me, but what is this teaching me? The merchant faced a second trial when his remaining business partner betrayed him. This time, instead of despair, he paused to examine his automatic reactions with newfound awareness. He noticed the surge of anger, the desire for revenge, the story his mind was constructing about victimhood. But he did not become these thoughts, he simply watched them arise and pass like clouds in his mental sky. In that space of awareness, he found freedom to choose his response rather than react automatically. He chose to thank his former partner for revealing his true character now rather than during a greater venture. The betrayal had saved him from a larger future disaster by showing him who could not be trusted. This reframe transformed his experience from victimization to education, from loss to fortunate warning. Talia meanwhile was practicing the fourth principle, the discipline of action aligned with virtue. She realized that the ultimate revenge against those who wronged her was to become someone magnificent. Rather than lowering herself to their level, she would rise so high they could no longer reach her. She began channeling her pain into purposeful action, creating something beautiful from her suffering. She started teaching young women who had faced similar injustices, helping them find their inner gold. Her adversity became her calling, her wound became her gift to others who were wounded. Metrodorus observed how both students were discovering what ancient alchemists truly sought to create. Not physical gold, but the gold of character forged in the furnace of adversity. He taught them the fifth principle, voluntary discomfort as preparation for involuntary hardship. Once a month, they would fast, sleep on the floor, and go without comforts they normally enjoyed. This practice created gratitude for ordinary blessings while building resilience for extraordinary challenges. They learned that luxury makes us soft, while deliberate hardship keeps us sharp and appreciative. The merchant began taking cold baths each morning, training his mind to remain calm despite discomfort. He discovered that conquering small discomforts daily prepared him to face greater challenges with equanimity. Talia practiced speaking truth even when it was uncomfortable, building her courage muscle incrementally. Each small act of courage made the next one easier, compounding into a formidable strength of character. Metrodorus introduced them to the concept of amor fati, love of fate, acceptance of all that occurs. This didn't mean passive resignation, but rather enthusiastic acceptance paired with vigorous action. To love fate is to recognize that everything that happens is weaving you into your greatest self. The merchant learned to say about every setback, "This is exactly what I needed to become who I must be." He stopped asking why me and started asking what now, what can I make of this given reality? This shift from victim consciousness to creator consciousness changed everything about his experience. Talia discovered that her betrayers had actually been her teachers in disguise, though unwitting ones. They taught her about discernment, about her own strength, about the difference between reputation and character. She sent them silent gratitude not for their intentions, but for the unintended consequences of their actions. This practice of finding gratitude even in betrayal was the final transmutation, lead into gold. Metrodorus taught them that every person we meet is either giving us gold or showing us where we need to mine for it. Supportive people give us gold directly through encouragement, difficult people show us where our inner gold needs excavation. The merchant and Talia began meeting regularly to practice Stoic alchemy together, supporting each other's growth. They would challenge each other's automatic interpretations, helping each other see alternate perspectives. When one struggled with adversity, the other would ask the key questions Metrodorus had taught them. What is within your control here? What opportunity is hidden in this challenge? What virtue can you practice? These questions became a formula for transmuting any experience into wisdom and growth. News spread through Athens of two former victims who had transformed themselves into philosophers of adversity. Others who suffered came seeking their wisdom, wondering how they had turned their pain into power. The merchant and Talia realized they had become what they had once sought, alchemists of the inner life. They had learned to extract value from every experience, to find the opportunity in every obstacle. Most importantly, they had discovered that inner gold cannot be lost in any external catastrophe. The qualities they had forged, courage, wisdom, integrity, compassion, these could never be taken away. They understood now what Metrodorus had meant about true wealth belonging only to character. External possessions could burn, be stolen, or fade, but internal virtues could only strengthen with use. The merchant rebuilt his business, but this time his identity wasn't attached to its success or failure. He held his new enterprise with an open hand, ready to learn from whatever outcome the fates provided. Talia's reputation was eventually restored as truth came to light, but she no longer needed it. She had found something far more valuable than the good opinion of others, self-respect earned through adversity. Both understood that they would face future adversities, for such is the nature of human existence. But now they possessed the alchemical formula, the method for transforming any lead into gold. They would welcome challenges as opportunities to practice their craft, to refine their character further. Metrodorus watched his students become teachers, the natural cycle of wisdom passing from generation to generation. The practice of Stoic alchemy spread through Athens and beyond, transforming lives wherever it took root. People learned that they didn't need to change their circumstances to change their lives. They needed to change how they perceived and responded to whatever circumstances life presented. The principles became timeless wisdom: control what you can, accept what you cannot, know the difference. Transform negative emotions through awareness, distance yourself from automatic reactions, choose responses aligned with virtue. Reframe obstacles as opportunities, practice voluntary discomfort, love your fate, extract wisdom from all experience. These weren't just philosophical concepts but practical tools for daily life in a chaotic world. The merchant used them when facing business challenges, regulatory changes, economic downturns. Talia used them when facing criticism, jealousy from others, the inevitable conflicts of community life. They discovered that inner gold grows brightest when external circumstances are darkest. Adversity is not the enemy of a good life, it is the forge in which a good life is created. Without resistance, there is no strength; without friction, there is no polish; without pressure, there are no diamonds. The Stoic alchemist welcomes all of life, the bitter with the sweet, knowing both are teachers. In a chaotic world, the greatest power is not to control external events but to master internal responses. This is the secret that ancient alchemists encoded in their cryptic texts and symbolic images. They weren't trying to turn physical lead into physical gold, but to transform the base metal of suffering into the gold of wisdom. The philosopher's stone they sought was not a magical object but a state of consciousness. It was the ability to transmute any experience through the power of perspective, judgment, and response. Years passed, and the merchant and Talia grew old, their bodies aging but their inner gold only growing brighter. They faced illness, loss of loved ones, the natural sorrows of human life with grace and even gratitude. Each challenge was simply another opportunity to practice their alchemical art, to choose wisdom over reactivity. When the merchant's health began to fail, he saw it as his final and perhaps greatest opportunity for transmutation. Death, the ultimate obstacle, could also be reframed as the ultimate teacher of what truly matters. Facing mortality stripped away all pretense, revealing what had true value and what had been mere distraction. The merchant's final words to his students were simple: find the gold in everything, especially the painful things. Talia continued the work, teaching until her own final days, the practice sustaining her through all trials. She proved that Stoic alchemy works not just for catastrophes but for the daily friction of ordinary life. Traffic jams, minor disappointments, small betrayals, all could be transmuted with the same principles. The practice wasn't reserved for dramatic moments but proved most valuable in the accumulation of small choices. Character is not forged in one heroic moment but in 10,000 small decisions made when no one is watching. The true test of Stoic alchemy is not how you handle rare disasters but how you handle Tuesday afternoon. Can you find gold in a traffic delay? In a rude comment? In a meal that didn't meet expectations? This is where the real work happens, in the unglamorous daily practice of transforming minor frustrations. Master the small adversities and the large ones become simply more of what you already know how to handle. The principles of Stoic alchemy remain as relevant today as they were in ancient Athens. Modern life brings modern chaos, but the human need for meaning and resilience remains unchanged. We face different obstacles than the ancients, but the method for transmuting them remains the same. The chaos of our world is simply the raw material waiting to be transformed into our inner gold. Every difficulty you face is an invitation to practice the alchemical art, to choose your response wisely. The question is not whether adversity will come, it will, but whether you have learned the formula for transmutation. That formula is simple in theory but requires lifetime practice: pause, reframe, respond with virtue. Pause creates space between stimulus and response, the space where freedom and choice live. Reframe asks what opportunity or lesson this situation offers, transforming obstacles into assets. Respond with virtue means choosing courage, wisdom, justice, or temperance as your guide for action. This three-step process turns you from a victim of circumstance into an alchemist of experience. The Stoic alchemist knows that life's greatest treasures are not found in comfort but forged in challenge. Your suffering is not wasted if you use it as the raw material for becoming someone magnificent. Every person who has achieved greatness did so not despite adversity but because of what they made from it. The inner gold you forge cannot be inherited, stolen, or given, it can only be earned through personal practice. This makes it the most valuable possession possible, the one thing that truly belongs to you alone. Begin today, the ancient alchemists whisper across time, begin with the very next challenge you face. Use the formula: pause when triggered, reframe the obstacle, respond from your highest self. Do this once, then twice, then 1,000 times until transmutation becomes your natural response. The world will continue to be chaotic, but you will have discovered the eye of the storm within yourself. This is the promise of Stoic alchemy, not a life without adversity, but a self that transforms adversity into gold. The chaos of the world becomes the very fuel that powers your inner refinement and growth. Remember, you are not powerless in the face of chaos, you are an alchemist with the power to transform it. Every challenge is an invitation to forge more inner gold, to become more fully yourself. Thank you for joining us on this journey into Stoic alchemy. May you transmute all life's lead into gold. Subscribe to All-Time Epic Stories for more wisdom from the ages applied to modern life.